My boyfriend humiliated me publicly, said, "A girl like you should be grateful." So I showed up at his birthday, let his boss hear the truth. My partner called me unattractive in front of his friends, then ditched me at a restaurant, leaving me to pay for the meal. As he walked away, he exclaimed loudly, "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you." I smiled and waited patiently. This morning, my phone exploded with 13 missed calls. You know, I am still processing what happened last weekend. I keep revisiting it in my thoughts, wondering whether I dreamt the entire thing. But nah, my maxed-out credit card and ice cream smears on my couch confirm that it was true. For reference, I'd been dating Harvey for 2 years. 2 years, not just a casual fling or whatever. We had the whole routine down. Netflix marathons on Sundays, awkward holiday meals with both families, and even that bizarre couples yoga class he insisted on doing, which we both awful at, to be honest. Things weren't ideal with us, are they ever? Yet I assumed we were solid. We had discussed moving in together this summer. He had these small, bothersome habits, like leaving his socks everywhere, texting while watching movies, and making helpful comments about my appearance. Things like, "That shirt makes your arms look bigger," or "Have you thought about trying a different hairstyle?" I always dismissed it as him being honest. Past me was a complete moron. So last Friday, Harvey texted me about a meal with some business pals. He had never really included me in his job life before, always claiming it was unprofessional or whatnot. So I was actually excited. I even went shopping for new clothing, which broke my budget, and spent hours getting ready. I'm talking about an entire YouTube makeup instruction, a luxury straightener that I only use on special occasions, and the works. I get to this super expensive downtown restaurant with tiny portions and no prices on the menu. Red flag number 1. Harvey has already arrived, accompanied by 2 coworkers, Leonard and Pablo. There's a strange vibe that greets me as I approach. Harvey barely notices me, with a half stand from his chair and a short, "You're late." I was really 2 minutes late since parking was impossible. I sit down and he looks at my clothes and says, "Oh, you wore that?" Not softly. His friends exchanged glances and I could feel my cheeks becoming hot. For the record, I was wearing a dark blue dress that I thought looked nice. Nothing outrageous or indecent. I attempt to joke it off like, "Is there a dress code I missed?" But he shrugs and says they've already ordered appetizers. Cool. Harvey spends the next hour chatting about work topics that I don't comprehend, while his friends nod along. When I try to join the conversation, Harvey either speaks over me or explains why I'm wrong about what I just stated. At one point, I started something about a customer at my store, and Harvey interrupts with, "She doesn't really get how things work in the real business world," and waves dismissively, as if retail isn't a real career. I have been a manager for 3 years. I'm sitting there, becoming increasingly uncomfortable, wondering if Harvey has always been this condescending, and I've simply never noticed, or if he's just showing off for his pals. Either way, it's not a good appearance. When Leonard asks how we met, I begin telling him about how his coworker Vanessa is my best friend and introduce us. Harvey interrupts me mid-sentence and says, "Yeah, Vanessa felt bad for her. I was doing a favor, really." He then laughs. "You guys!" My stomach literally sank. That is not even close to how things happened. Vanessa had warned me about Harvey's ego before we met, but she assured me that he was a wonderful guy underneath. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. I excuse myself to the bathroom, partly to avoid crying in front of them. I'm in the stall texting Vanessa like, "WTF is going on?" when I receive a message that Harvey just tagged himself at this restaurant on Instagram with "Boys Night Out," as if I'm not even there. Vanessa calls me right away, but I send her to voicemail because I don't want the boys to hear me cry. I spray some water on my face, touch up my makeup, and give myself a sad little pep talk in the mirror about getting through dinner with dignity. When I return to the table, everyone is laughing over something, but it immediately stops when I sit down. Awesome. The server brings our main meals, and Harvey starts making comments about my food selection. I ordered spaghetti, one of the less expensive options because I was already concerned about the bill, and he started saying things like carb loading for a marathon. And that's a bold choice for someone with your body type. Each comment feels like a small paper cut, and they build up quickly. I pulled up to his parents' house at 6:15, fashionably late, just to irk Derek. The driveway was packed. The whole family was there. I checked my makeup, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. Derek's dad, Greg, greeted me with a warm hug and led me inside. The house smelled like Linda's amazing lasagna, and I felt a pang of sadness. This was likely the last time I'd see them. I turned the corner into the living room and saw Derek, drink in hand, chuckling at something his cousin said. He froze when he saw me, clearly not expecting me to show up, despite what he'd told his family. His face was a mix of shock and panic before he plastered on a fake smile and came over, hugging me too tightly and whispering, "You actually showed up. We need to talk alone." I just grinned and said loudly, Miss your birthday? Never, especially since you said we had big news to share. His face went pale. Linda clapped excitedly, asking if it was what she hoped. Derek's sister gave me a knowing glance. His dad teased about grandkids. Derek grabbed my arm, trying to pull me aside, but Linda called everyone to the table for dinner. As we sat, Derek watched me like a hawk. My phone buzzed. Nate. On my way. 15 minutes out. Derek leaned in, hissing, "Why are you here? After the restaurant?" I smiled sweetly and said, loud enough for all to hear, "Oh, I couldn't miss telling your family about that restaurant story, Derek. They'll love it." The sheer terror on his face as Linda brought out the food was worth every ounce of anxiety it took to get there. Game on. Second update. I'm finally ready to share what happened at Derek's birthday dinner. Sorry for the wait. I needed a mental break after all this chaos. Plus, my Wi-Fi's been spotty since my neighbor somehow got my password and probably downloaded the entire internet. So, there I was at Derek's parents' table, surrounded by his family, Linda and Greg, his sister Mia, his grandma, and 2 cousins, whose names I always mix up. The spread was incredible. Linda's famous lasagna, creamy garlic bread, and a fancy salad no one touched but everyone politely praised. The first 20 minutes were tense. Derek kept steering the conversation, shooting me nervous glares. I just smiled and passed the butter, savoring how he flinched every time I spoke. Petty? Perhaps. Satisfying? Definitely. Linda kept things flowing, asking about my family, my job, the usual chit-chat. When she mentioned how thrilled everyone was about Derek's big promotion, I nearly spat out my drink. I glanced at Derek, whose face matched the red sauce on his plate. He jumped in, bragging about how his team was killing it and his boss was practically handing him a corner office. According to Nate, Derek told everyone at work he dumped me because I was clingy and obsessed with marriage. Excuse me? I didn't start the Dream Home Pinterest board. That was Derek, claiming it was for a work project. Then Nate dropped a bombshell. Derek wasn't just lying about his job title. He was on thin ice at work for stealing credit for others' ideas and might get fired soon. Those late nights, working? He was scrambling to fix mistakes before anyone noticed. Business trips? Total lies. I was still processing when my phone rang. It was Derek's mom, Linda. I almost didn't answer, but I decided to be the bigger person. Linda's always been sweet, remembers my birthday, asks about my life. She sounded worried, asking if things were okay between me and Derek. Apparently, he told his family we had a minor spat, but we're fine. A minor spat? He humiliated me publicly, ditched me with a huge bill, and broke up with me. I kept it vague, saying we were taking a break, not wanting to drag her into it. Then she mentioned Derek's birthday dinner on Saturday, saying the whole family was excited to see me there. I nearly choked on my noodles. Derek had told them we were still together and had big news to share. After hanging up, I sat there stunned as Tara stared at me like I'd sprouted horns. "Is he unhinged or just a compulsive liar?" she asked. I was wondering the same. That's when we hatched a plan. I wasn't going to ghost his family. They'd always been good to me, and they deserved the truth. But I wouldn't cause a scene or stoop to his level. I'd go to the dinner as invited and let the truth come out naturally. The next day, I met Nate for coffee. It was a bit awkward since we'd only met through Derek, but he was genuinely nice. He confirmed everything and added more details about Derek's work lies. Derek claimed to lead a team that was just him and 2 interns. That big presentation? He was only handling the PowerPoint while his boss presented. Nate said Derek's stories about me always seemed off, claiming I was high maintenance when I was actually covering most of our dates because Derek was short on cash, probably because he was terrible with money. Mid-conversation, Nate got a text from their boss asking him to come in Saturday evening for an urgent project. Nate was bummed about canceling his plans, but I had an idea. What if he dropped off something at Derek's parents' house during the dinner? The timing would be perfect. We worked out the details, and then my phone buzzed. Derek's first text since the restaurant. "We should talk. I might have overreacted." Might have? I showed Nate, who nearly choked on his coffee. Overreacting is snapping about someone being late, not publicly degrading your girlfriend and sticking her with a $300 bill. I didn't reply. Let him stew. The next 2 days were a frenzy of prep. I wasn't going to this dinner unprepared. I combed through old texts, spotting lies, dates he said he was at work, events that didn't exist, co-workers he mentioned that Nate said weren't real, even photos he posted from work trips that were clearly stolen from the company website. Tara came over Friday to help pick an outfit. Part of me wanted to show up looking stunning just to spite him, but we went for understated elegance. A black dress Derek once called ordinary, which I now know was his weird attempt at negging because I always got compliments in it. I barely slept Friday night, worrying about everything going wrong, his family siding with him, me freezing up. By Saturday morning, I chewed my nails to stubs and imagined every possible outcome. Derek texted again around noon. Excited to see you tonight. Dress nice. My parents can't wait. I didn't respond. Let him assume what he wants. I spent the afternoon getting ready, nerves and excitement mixing. Tara did my hair and gave me a pep talk when I started doubting myself. At 5:30, I drove to his parents' house, pulling over once because my hands were shaking too much to drive safely. I sat there, doing breathing exercises from a meditation app I'd downloaded but never used. Was I insane? Maybe I should just block Derek and move on. But then I pictured him at that dinner spinning lies about our relationship, probably playing the victim, and my resolve hardened. I've tried to make this work, but I'm not into you anymore. We're done. Right there, in the middle of the restaurant, in front of his friends, after 2 years. Who does that? I was blindsided. Are you serious? This is how you're doing this? He stood, grabbed his coat, and said, Someone like you should be lucky I even gave you the time of day. You're not exactly a catch. Then he and his friends left, laughing, leaving me with a $372 tab for their fancy steaks and overpriced drinks. The waiter gave me a pitying look that made it 1,000 times worse. I paid with my credit card, already stretched thin from holiday shopping, and made it to my car before completely breaking down. I called Tara from the parking lot, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. She showed up at my place with ice cream and wine, absolute legend. Between tears and shoving cookie dough in my face, I spilled everything. She was livid. I had to talk her out of marching to Derek's place and causing a scene. Then she got quiet, asking about Derek's work comments, the project he mentioned, his role at the company. Finally, she said, Sabrina, I hate to tell you this, but Derek's not who he says he is at work. He wasn't some rising marketing star. He's an assistant, fetching coffee, booking meetings. Those business trips? Made up. The big presentation? He was just formatting slides for the real team. His LinkedIn title? Pure fiction. I felt like a fool. 2 years, and I'd never questioned his lies. What else was fake? After Tara left, I went full detective, digging through our texts, photos, everything. The inconsistencies were glaring. Money comments that didn't add up, late work nights when his location showed him across town. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that restaurant moment. How worthless he made me feel. At 3 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Nate from Derek's office. Tara gave me your number. You need to know some things. That's when it got wild. Update. Thanks for all the kind words on my last post. Some of your comments had me tearing up, in a good way. Many of you asked for an update, so here's what happened next in this crazy saga. After learning from Nate, Derek's co-worker, that my boyfriend of 2 years was living a lie, I spent the next few days in a post-breakup haze. You know the vibe. Crying into ice cream 1 minute, obsessively scrolling old photos the next, questioning if any of it was real. My apartment was a mess. Dishes piled up, clothes everywhere, and a stack of empty takeout bags because cooking felt impossible. The worst part was those moments I'd think of something funny to text Derek, only to remember what he did, and it was like getting dumped all over again. My brain was stuck in a loop of did that really happen, and how did I miss this? I stayed off social media, knowing Derek's posts would infuriate me. But Wednesday morning, I caved and checked Instagram. There he was, posting a gym selfie captioned, Grind Mode. Know your value. The nerve. I nearly threw my phone. Tara came over that night with takeout and found me wrapped in a blanket like a sad taco. She's been a rock, making sure I eat actual food, listening to me vent on repeat, and never saying, I told you so, even though she'd had reservations about Derek from the start. While we ate, she showed me her texts with Nate. They'd been talking and he had more dirt.